strength through unity, unity through faith. This is the motto of the far-right, ultra-nationalist political party that controls Britain. The government rules with an iron fist to ensure the safety of its people. They were quickly shown the reality of this world as two lawmen attempt to do not-so-safety-oriented acts on a young girl named Evie. And they likely would have succeeded if it weren't for the unexpected save by the man in a Guy Fawkes mask, simply known as V. After V rescues Evie, V invites Evie to hear a performance he's going to be putting on, which will include an entire orchestra. As it turns out, this performance isn't just involving an orchestra, but includes a fireworks show as well. Really more of a bombing that destroys the Old Bailey, the central criminal court of England and Wales. Not even 10 minutes into the film, and the groundwork is set for where this thing is heading. Government holding power over its people in the name of unity and protection. Blatantly lying in order to move forward selfish agendas that, as it turns out, don't benefit the people at all, but only really benefit a few that sit firmly at the top. Does this sound familiar? Am I talking about a movie or am I talking about real life? I guess I gave that part away when I mentioned the groundwork of the film. Stupid. You get what I meant though, right? Yeah, you do. You're smart. Otherwise you wouldn't be here watching my video, am I right? Today, join me in exploring a film that's more pertinent now than it was when it was released over 20 years ago. Let's look at the world of V for Vendetta and the coincidental foreshadowing it's had on our world 2 decades later.
I, like God, do not play with dice and do not believe in coincidence.
And then if you're hungry for a little more, we'll go back in time to hone in on one commonality between historical revolutions and V's revolt that tend to get overlooked before sending you back out into the world. Wait, before moving forward, if you haven't already seen V for Vendetta, or it's been a while, I would encourage you to put this video on pause, go watch it, and then hurry back. I don't want to spoil the experience for you as we embark on this little journey together. Give you a few moments. All right, glad you're back. Let's dive in. Artists used lies to tell the truth while politicians used them to cover the truth up. E.V. Hammond. Norsefire in the UK. Set in a nondescript time in the future, a group called Norsefire is a neo-fascist totalitarian regime. The Nordic supremacist political party rules the UK after a virus outbreak has left Britain in shambles. Made up of the head, which is the executive, the hand, which is the executive branch, the finger, with the secret police aptly named the Fingerman, the eye, which is the visual surveillance division, the ear, which is the audio surveillance division, the nose, which is the state police division, and the mouth, which handles the propaganda division running the NTV, along with some strong ties to the church and a few mysterious large businesses. The branch is organized with each member existing to sustain power at the top. And who exactly is everybody at the top, you ask? We'll get to that in more detail in a bit, but the primary person in power is a fella named Adam Sutler, the old Chancellor de Norsefire. Chancellor Sutler seems pretty angry all the time and is frequently pushing out propaganda, rules and regulations in order to sustain fear in the people and maintain power. Rules and regulations like strict curfews and rationing food supply, which is useful for maintaining dependence on government, and a zero-tolerance policy for criticism of government and anyone in a position of leadership. The propaganda used promotes constant danger of another virus outbreak that has potential to be worse than the previous one that led to all the tight government restrictions. Mucho misinformation to hide weakness, like when V destroys the Old Bailey and it's reported as a late-night planned demolition, while simultaneously pushing out fear around potential terrorist attacks that never actually happen. There's heavy criticism of other countries, primarily America, depicting them as being in far worse condition than the UK, and villainizing anyone who isn't a heterosexual white Christian with a strong emphasis on hate for Muslims and gays. Okay, so let's recap. A virus epidemic, hysteria, an unexpected leader steps in. That leader provides a mysterious solution and promises of a better world. This solution is followed by strong regulations, all under the guise of sustaining a safe nation. Strength through unity, unity through faith. All while also rounding on minorities and those that oppose the powers that be, placing them into what is obviously a concentration camp that's just relabeled as a resettlement camp. Heavy surveillance, media control and propaganda, criticism of other countries and races, outlawing of all other religions and creeds, limiting speech, and regulating food output. This one is actually far more important than it might seem on the surface, and we'll get back to it a little later in the video. But if you had a bingo card for the decade we're living in, how many of these guys could we mark off so far? How interesting! Next up, let's check out what happened leading up to Norsefire ending up in power. The rise to power. Alright, now let's take a look at the players in power. No, not those ones. We're still talking about V for Vendetta. We'll get back to those guys later. Nice, yeah, these players play, The cinematic lore goes a little like this. A younger gentleman from a conservative party with strong religious beliefsies starts touring around holding rallies to talk about the state of the country. That man is Adam Sutler. Sutler's popularity grows and he's got a few homies with him. Norsefire begins to form. Suddenly there's a little nasty plague that hits England, killing over 100,000 people. Turns out this outbreak was not an accident and is quickly labeled a terrorist attack. This virus-based terrorist attack is described as a pretext for genocide and is used to push out propaganda, elevating fear in the people and promoting Adam Sutler and Norsefire as a strong solution to this problem. After making some promises to the people to make Britain great again and save everyone from the terrorists, Adam Sutler is appointed as High Chancellor after winning the general elections with 83% of the votes backing him. Shortly after, a cure is provided for the virus that became called St. Mary's virus. Religious extremists are arrested and immediately confess to the terrorist act, then quickly executed. This little happening is leveraged by Norsefire to do a nationwide purge of all those that oppose Norsefire alongside homosexuals, Africans, Asians, Muslims, Jews, atheists, immigrants, and even Scientologists. No, not Tom Cruise! Just kidding, there's no mention of Scientologists being arrested in the movie. But in real life,
it's 27 minutes after the hour. Scientology has some prominent followers and some very vocal critics, but now some of those critics are anonymous, taking their campaign to the internet.
Anyway, after rounding all these groups up, they're taken to the Lark Hill resettlement camp, a place that is definitely not a concentration camp. See, it doesn't even have it in the name. They're called resettlement camps. New branches of government are developed, most of which are primarily chosen by Sutler, a secret police force for Sutler that handles the disposal of all things who oppose him, even removing late-night hosts that poke some fun at him, audio and visual surveillance teams to keep a close watch on the citizens of the UK, so if anyone be plotting, they be plotting their way, they be plotting their way not here anymore. If they're planning any bad things against the government, they'll be plotting their way into one of the resettlement camps. That was the joke that I was trying to, it didn't pan out very well, but you get what I'm saying.
Getting rid of these people here. First, Mr. Samir Naga. Not gonna work here anymore anyway.
There's an entire news network, and seemingly the only news network, dedicated to rolling out propaganda, most of which is anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, and anti-American, sustaining fear of another virus hitting the streets and consistently providing misinformation about the old happenings around town. There's a front-facing police force that handles most of the day-to-day affairs to enforce the laws and regulations. Oh, and there's a little bonus group, while technically not part of the Norsefire party, the Catholic Church, which seems to be heavily involved in the dirty behind-the-scenes happenings of Norsefire, represented by a pedo-bear bishop. Now here's the kicker. Turns out that virus, which was the catalyst to this whole new world, was actually lab-made and rolled out by Norsefire, not a terrorist organization. A premeditated plan to sustain their wealth and power and squash any and all who oppose them. And the new powers that be quickly provide a cure after securing government power, leading to even more wealth and power funneling straight to the dorks at the top. I mean, come on! How's that bingo card of yours doing? Anarchy in the UK. V, his motives, and what he represents. V is an enigma, Poor choice of words. V is a mysterious anarchist vigilante, although I should mention the comic does a better job of depicting him as an anarchist than the film. Alan Moore, the creator of the comic, actually described V as being more of a freedom fighter for liberalism in the movie. We don't get much of a backstory on V, but he seems to have a bit of a bee in his bonnet regarding the folks over at Norsefire. Bit of a bee in his bonnet is really fun to say, by the way. I'd recommend pausing the video and giving it a try at least 3 times really fast by yourself. Bit of a bee in his bonnet, bit of a bee in his bonnet, bit of a bee in his bonnet. See how fun that is? Super fun. Anyway, what we do know is V was one of the inmates at the not a concentration camp Lark Hill Resettlement Camp. And at the old Lark Hill Resettlement Camp, not a concentration camp, some experiments were being conducted on the inmates there that generally led to very painful deaths for most. V, on the other hand, not only survives the experiments, but ultimately escapes by blowing the place up. Though this does lead to some nasty burns on our boy. After his escape, he begins planning a vendetta on the ones who did him wrong while rocking a Guy Fawkes mask, a sweet cape and hat, and stockpiled with knives. But what might have started as a strictly personal vendetta against those who wronged him evolved into a revolution. We don't really get a full explanation for V's initial intent with the bombings and assassinations he's performing, or an explicit timeline regarding everything he's been doing. But there's no doubt that it's been in motion for quite some time, and by the end of his story, he wanted there to be a message that was loud and clear. These actions were less about his individual desire for vengeance and more about inspiring the oppressed to rebel against the corrupt, tyrannical government that's doing the oppressing.
Beneath this mask, there is more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, Mr. Creedy, and ideas are bulletproof.
Alright, no more beating around the bush. I've been alluding to similarities between the film and our world for long enough. Let's get dirty. It's time to do a proper compare and contrast. Planet Earth Players in Power, 5th of November, 2025. Fascism. A flashy little word that seems to get thrown around pretty often. According to the old Merriam-Webster, fascism can be defined as a populist political philosophy movement or regime, such as that of the fashionista. Nope, that's not right. Fascisti. That's the one. A populist political philosophy, movement, or regime such as that of the fascisti that exalts nations and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized, autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. This definition is a bit wordy and simultaneously pretty underwhelming, but it gives a semi-sturdy baseline to work with. A proper breakdown of fascism would probably take around 24 minutes and 7 seconds or so. Oh, well, would you look at that? A video on fascism that's 24 minutes and 7 seconds. If you want a deeper dive on the topic, click the card on the top right of the screen. Maybe even pause this video, go watch that one, and then come back here. Whatever you want. I don't want to dictate your behavior. Do you get it? Because the dictatorship and the fascism thing? The word fascism is never actually mentioned in the film adaptation of V for Vendetta, though strongly implied. We're going to follow that lead and not get too caught up on definitions today. My hope is to prioritize pattern recognition rather than attaching labels. Working toward discovering some of these patterns together can lead to deeper understanding for all parties involved. So where do we begin? Well, just like in the film, we should start by following the money. Where's the money, you ask?
Always money in a banana stand.
In the film, there's the Norsefire party and all the leaders within it, but each member was pushed to the top and into power as an extension of large-scale companies and wealth working behind the scenes. The film doesn't really dive into this too deeply, but the entire virus outbreak was manufactured by the greatest collab of all time. Can you guess what the collab was? No, it wasn't As Long As You Love Me by Justin Bieber and Big Sean. Good guess though. The collab was the wealthy, a few large companies, and the government. Greatest rap trio of all time. If by wrap you mean wrapping up and squeezing out the smaller companies and disrupting the middle class, all while funneling that delicious money and power up to the top, then producing a little cure for said virus, which resulted in the final blow to any surviving small businesses and middle class folk. Power is secured and fear is spread using misinformation and disorientation style propaganda.
Cut it out!
For your viewing pleasure, I've curated a little Norsefire v real-life players in power compare and contrast chart that took me nearly 6 weeks to put together because the graphics are so technical, leveraging my MS Paint skills that I've been developing on and off since Windows 98. I hope you enjoy and encourage you to consider leaving a comment down below mentioning some IRL people, places, or things that you think might qualify as Norsefire-esque and fit somewhere on the chart you should see now. The power is sustained by leveraging fear, controlling food, regulating speech, and pummeling the population with concerns about new sicknesses developing, different races and religions coming for you and your family, and reminding people how good they have it here compared to other countries that are constantly involved in war and poverty. New departments are developed to keep a watchful eye on the people to make sure they're still eating the propaganda they're being fed with a smile on their face. If someone is not, they're arrested and painted as a villain. Human rights deteriorate by the day, and the fear grows so strong it begins to infect the same people that were curating the propaganda to begin with, till suddenly one day someone gets tired of being afraid and decides to stand up to the powers that be. Viva la Revolution. Just like we discussed before, today we're looking for patterns rather than labels. In the film, V is never named an outright anarchist, though he's doing things that strongly imply a little anarchy. Here's a quick little definition of anarchism according to Merriam-Webster, and then we'll move along. Anarchism, a political theory holding all forms of governmental authority to be unnecessary and undesirable, and advocating society based on voluntary cooperation and free association of individuals and groups. So many ands in that run-on sentence, holy hell. Quite a bit of anarchy in that definition though, am I right? Anyway, there's a strong probability I'll do a deep dive on the philosophy of anarchism and all that entails in the future. If that's something you'd be interested in, go outside and scream anarchy loud and clear into the sky. If you see a bird flying overhead, know that that bird has heard you and it's coming back to let me know that a little anarchism by TrumbleVision is something you're interested in. If you don't see a bird overhead, I'm still working on getting bird coverage nationwide. So for now, leaving a comment down below with the word anarchy in it might be the only option until we can get bird coverage in your area. What the hell were we talking about? Oh, right. I also want to give the Merriam-Webster definition of revolution, which is a sudden, radical, or complete change, a fundamental change in political organization. It's up for debate as to whether or not what we see in V for Vendetta is specifically an anarchist revolution. But for now, let's keep trucking on matching up these revolutionary patterns. We're going to be covering a few revolutions that have occurred throughout history, and just like before with the definitions, it would be absurd to think an entire revolution could be summed up in just a few sentences. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is mentioning a few revolutions, then take a look at one of the contributing factors and how these revolutions popped off, and likely one of the more overlooked factors in both the film and real life, and closing out this section with a little eggy surprise. Y'all ready for this?
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
Irish Revolutionary period, 1912 to 1923. Oppression of the Irish people leading to a guerrilla war fought between the Irish Republican Army, IRA, and the British, leading to Irish independence from the British. French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. Oppression of the French people, leading to rebellion against the monarchy in power. The powers that be were providing next to nothing for the people, all while indulging in very lavish lifestyles. Turns out, when you're broke and hungry, seeing your king and queen ball out on all sorts of fancy new fits and eating delicious steaks and cakes doesn't go over super well. French Revolution ends the monarchy. American Revolution, 1765 to 1783. Long-standing disagreement over how Great Britain was governing the old American colonies. This compounded over time and led to a little revolution and ultimately ended in American independence. Cuban Revolution, or Revolución Cubana, 1953 to 1959. This one is very similar to the previously mentioned revolutions. Oppression of the Cuban people leading to an overthrow of Batista, who was ruling as a dictator at the time. Batista smothered an emerging Cuban democracy and consolidated power. But there's something unique that stands out about this revolution that draws a strong comparison to the end of V for Vendetta. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but Evie ends the film with a quote that starts with, "We are told to remember the idea, not the man, because a man can fail." There are two men that stood out during this revolution long after it ended: Fidel Castro and Ernesto Guevara, better known as Che Guevara. Fidel Castro lived on after the revolution and took a position of power, ironically becoming a dictator of sorts in his own right, ruling in a way that closed Cuba off from a large percentage of the rest of the world until he left office in 2011 and passed in 2016, while Che Guevara was executed as a revolutionary, still fighting as a guerrilla leader, turning him into an idea. And if you've ever been on a university campus in the US, you can see that even 6+ decades later, some of the ideas he represented are still alive and well. This could actually be used as an argument for why V had to die in the end, leaving behind the outcome of the revolution to the people of Britain. In fact, there's a lot more that can be said about this little nugget. I want to say so much more about this little nugget. Should I? No. Stay on track. Stay focused. Instead, I'll leave the idea with you to think about. The final part, I want to discuss about motivating factors regarding a revolution, something I mentioned briefly earlier and we're circling back to now. The power of food scarcity. Eggy in a basket. In V for Vendetta, V is making eggy in a basket for Evie. When she eats it, she recognizes the flavor of real butter, something that V had stolen straight from the Chancellor's government supply train. Later, Dietrich is making breakfast for Evie and turns out to also be making eggy in a basket. Though he doesn't claim to have stolen any butter to make it, Dietrich jokes that he's actually V. Though the joke falls flat, the moment extinguishes any doubt that Dietrich isn't on the side of the rebels, if you will. Food is used as a symbol to convey unity in the rebellion. Eggy in a basket is shown twice, and I believe to be a not so subtle nod to the importance of food when it comes to a revolution. Because when food is stripped away, there's nothing more terrifying than an oppressed group of people on the brink of death due to starvation. People have a pretty high tolerance for oppression, surveillance, etc., but once you start rationing food for the folks at the bottom, leading to hunger or even starvation, all while the ones at the top are free to get plump as ever, it doesn't generally bode well. So ABWYFA. What does that mean? Always be watching for food availability. You guys remember that whole WWJD bracelet trend from like 20 years ago? Am I dating myself when I say it? It's like that, but for large-scale rebellions. ABWYFA. You heard it here first. ABWYFA. A Song of Rain and Fire. There's a moment in the movie where we see Evie's liberation from fear followed by a back and forth between her and when V had his own liberation. Evie's is filled with tears and what we later discover to be love, with rain pouring down from the sky. When V's is one filled with rage as he's surrounded by fire. The fire is symbolic of the madness required to begin this revolution, and the rain is symbolic of what's needed to stabilize after a revolution is complete. Revolutionary groups or individuals that overthrow governments don't generally just hand off the power to the people afterwards. As mentioned before with the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro was a man fighting for the people. After overthrowing Batista's military dictatorship, Castro slipped into leadership, initially establishing a socialist government but quickly ruling in his own style of dictatorship. Because sometimes that power is too tasty to give up for a fiery revolutionist. And beyond that, it's tough, if not impossible, to go from a leader in guerrilla warfare to being a suit-and-tied politician-style leader. Your hands have to get pretty damn dirty, usually dirty in a way that doesn't just wash off in the sink. So the revolutionist is put to rest and the torch is passed, using the power of water! And out of the ashes rises a reluctant leader and restructuring of the old into something new, sometimes handled by some members or branches of the old that weren't deep into corruption of the former leader. The healing can begin. Ascension from Purgatory. Here in real life, with tensions rising, it's easy to get wrapped up in the idea of a large-scale revolution. Maybe you've even been fantasizing about leading a revolution yourself, and who knows, maybe you are that leader for a future revolution. Probably not though, unless you're down to eat boiled green bananas and snakes. Even a leader is nothing without the ones that follow. The leader of a revolution without a following is just a lunatic, and perhaps a little lunacy is what it takes. But, as they say, it takes a village. There is no I in village. Wait, that's not the saying. It takes a team, and there's no I without team. Damn it, that's not what I'm saying.
What are you saying then?
I'm saying you've got to be a little crazy to lead a revolution, but you also need people fighting alongside you, or you're just crazy. There we go, we did it. We got there, guys, we got there. It's worth noting that in the film, V was pushed to a point of potential insanity, and without Evie, the outcome would have been very different. He left the decision with her, which was symbolic of passing the torch back to the people, rather than the action being that of a single man. And he had to die, not because he needed to be a martyr, but because his role was to spread an idea. Is that your plan? Is that what you're gonna do? Nah, you ain't him. So what the hell do we do? Ask questions and really listen to the answers. Pay attention. Go outside. Read more fiction. Cancel subscriptions you don't use. Consume less. Make more. Eat an eggie in a basket. Honestly, these aren't really tips on how to take down an over-controlling government. This is just my to-do list. V for Vendetta is a fictional story that even 20 years later holds truth in its hand, perhaps more than it did when it was originally released. Sometimes fiction tells a better truth than the facts presented as news. A lie being used to paint a picture that tells the truth, rather than the lies that continue to be used to cover the truth up. So what you can do is be mindful of the information you're spoon-fed as truth, particularly when the hand that's feeding it to you has a vested interest in sustaining their power over you. Hey, thanks for watching. Now it's your turn. Do you recognize any patterns between V for Vendetta and Planet Earth 2025? Are we destined for doomery, or are we heading towards salvation? Mayhaps both? Let me know in a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos I'll do in the future. It legitimately helps a lot. If you want more TrumbleVision, go check out my video on the philosophy of television's greatest detective, or the one on how to make the perfect film. Until next time, this is Ian, signing off. For Luigi.